Howdy folks, and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be talking about Animal Jam hot takes. My own hot takes from the community, and hot takes from my friends in the Discord server. This topic was actually brought up by someone on my community post where I was asking for content ideas, however that isn't where I got the idea from. I actually stumbled across a post on Reddit about Animal Jam hot takes, and by scrolling through them I saw that there was a lot of really juicy ideas out there, and some of them I agreed with and some of them I didn't. So in today's video, I'm going to be reading through hot takes from both the Reddit and my Discord server, sharing my opinions on them, and then maybe sharing some of my own hot takes. The usernames of everyone in this video will be blacked out. That is to protect the privacy of the people who I'm including in this video, and to prevent any sort of harassment towards them for their unpopular opinions. That being said, if you are featured in this video and you want to make your opinion clear and heard, feel free to sound off in the comments. With that being said, I hope you guys enjoy the video. We start off with a pretty tame one. Alpha items are cool to own, but most of them are pretty lame looking. And I'm going to be honest, I pretty much agree with this entirely. I really enjoy the alpha items that are fossils, but that's just from a collector's standpoint, and for the most part, a lot of the alpha items don't look too great. I would say especially with the den items, most of them are really small, inconsequential, and can be good for cluttering, but definitely aren't like something that I would go out of my way to hoard or look for a lot, the only exception for me being Cammy's frog, but then again, it just comes in one color variant, and that's like a single exception. As for the clothing items, I do like some of the alpha clothing items, like namely the truck shoes or whatever they're called, but even some of the really popular ones like the double tail and the starlight wings. The double tail is just a recolor, and while I do love a good recolor, it is pretty lame. And the starlight wings, while designed by someone else, have kind of been reused and used so much that there's an oversaturation of them in outfits, and it does kind of come out being pretty lame looking. So I would say that I pretty much agree with this opinion. Next we got the galaxy potions / items were a mistake. This is a really divisive thing within the community. I've read a lot of stuff, especially on Reddit, about the galaxy potions, and honestly I find the whole situation hilarious. Would I say it was a mistake? I mean, no. Was it definitely like a fad type thing that was like super popular very briefly and is going to like die down? Yeah, for sure. I would say that the potions are kind of scary in the way that people can make super duper rare items just galaxy themed, absolutely tanking the value of the items. But I mean, it's their items. They should be allowed to do what they want with them. I wouldn't say that they were a mistake. I would say that they have some pretty humorous outcomes though. Like if I can find it, I will put it up on screen. But recently I saw a post on Reddit where someone made a ton of super high value items galaxy with the potions specifically to make a rage outfit to upset people, and I would say the whole thing is generally hilarious. But considering this is such a divisive opinion within the community, let me know what you guys think. Next up we got a bit of a longer one, and this is one that I've seen a few times, not even just in this post. Arctic wolves are one of the hardest animals to style. None of the neck items look good, that either clip into the model or right underneath the wolf's chin. Most back items go under the top layer of fur and make them hard to see. The head is a weird shape, so most face and head items look weird. And since it's such a popular animal, as soon as you find a look that you like, someone has already probably done it better. It's annoying. That and the general idea that the Arctic wolf is super, like, overrated has been something I've seen a lot, which gets a little funny because I think it winds, like, around from being an unpopular idea to being a popular opinion just because so many people dislike it as a popular animal. And I actually agree. A lot of the items look super wonky on the Arctic wolf due to the fact that its chest is just so puffy and then its face is so small, especially with the neck items. I don't see the issue with the back items so much. In fact, I see more so an issue with back items being very small since its neck and like chest area is so much bigger than the back. But yeah, items certainly look weird on Arctic wolves, and in my opinion, they are super overrated, but I guess they kind of go back around to being underrated because of how many people actively hate them. I just think that's kind of funny. The next one I would say is actually super spicy. I think the current state of AJ isn't as bad as people make it out to be. While I agree with super boxes and other stuff and agree with people, it's something I've gotten over with, because I see effort put into the game now compared to before, and I just hope they continue doing more with the game. I 100,000% agree with this. People give the game a lot of slack because of how quote-unquote pay-to-win it's become, and I would say that in a way it certainly has with like the monthly super boxes and like the membership perks and everything, but I would say that they have been putting visibly a lot more effort into the game. I would say that a lot more animals now look like a lot better than during like the 2020 to 2021 era. So I'm seeing more effort in the animal models. I'm seeing more effort put into items, especially clothing items. Like a few months ago, they started putting in some clothing items that have like actual gravity and jiggle physics, which I find hilarious. Like the floppy bunny ear hat, I think was like the first major one as of late. And then like after that, they started doing a bunch of new items like that. It just gives so much charm, in my opinion. And even some of the animals like have jiggle physics with like their nose, like the anteater. I just find it super charming. I think they're actually like listening to audience demand, considering that in the upcoming update, we're seeing layers added in the masterpiece system. We're seeing a new DNA vial with a new pet. And literally the entirety of the advertisement for the upcoming update had a huge pride section, which, like, considering a large majority of the Animal Jam community, more so like a large chunk, I mean, is queer or gay in some way. They are definitely listening to people more. Of course, they're not the financial aspect, because you kind of do need money to run your company, but I would say there's a lot more effort going into it. We saw that with the Easter update, the missions, the new name tags. Like, they're just making the game more engaging, and I think that I would be okay with there being a more paying aspect to the game if we see like more content-filled updates. And in my opinion, I think it's 100% a good thing, and that people are definitely overblowing a couple small issues when there's so many amazing things going on. And so they'd rather talk about the little bad news than the tons of good news. On the entire opposite side of the spectrum, though, we have this, which was taken from my Discord server. Animal Jam was far better before all the new game-changing updates. The last year the game truly felt right was back in 2019. And back in 2019 was like before the dog apocalypse and before like missions and like day and night cycles. I believe they were really new around then, but this general idea is before all of these big updates that changed the game fundamentally and added all of these new aspects to the game, it was better back then. I disagree. I don't think it was better. I just think that to some people they had preferred the previous game because that's what they were used to. It did definitely like change the game and how the game was played, and did complex like the rarity system a little bit. But I would say that overall, it just changed the game and made it into a new, more advanced game, which is completely valid if you like a more simple, I don't want to say dumbed down, a more simplified version of the game. But in my personal opinion, I love all these new updates. It gives me more reason to spend an unholy amount of time on Animal Jam, and I feel like is a good way to rope in new players and to bring back old ones. I really enjoy it. But this is like probably the first time that I've heard this, but considering that someone like upvoted that post and seemed to agree with it, I want to know what you guys think. Do you think that these updates are too much, like this person does, or do you think that the updates are like a really good thing, like the person before them? I'm really curious, because I guess I personally am like a huge fan of seeing new stuff and change and experimenting with the game. But some people definitely prefer, sticking to the roots, which I know that some Animal Jam Classic players have those feelings as well, like where they're not willing to touch Play Wild because Play Wild is new and different, even though Play Wild has so many more features and stuff now. Some people don't not like Play Wild for genuine reasons. Sometimes it's just a lack of wanting to change. So I'm just curious about what you guys think. Let me know. Now, a bit of warning in advance, this one is pretty rough, so hang with me here. Getting scammed in-game is the victim's fault, unless you genuinely didn't know item worth, but if you made a trade or purchase with the expectation that you will receive your items or sapphires back, then it is entirely your fault for being scammed. Yes, scammers are scummy and take advantage of children and naive people, but just listen to Fleece and take responsibility for your own items or you won't get scammed. I do not agree with this whatsoever. Just because people fall for something doesn't mean that it's their fault. The entire point of scammers is for them to manipulate children. And while, yes, we have features in-game now to teach children about safety and responsibility online, that makes it so much easier said than done. If you've ever been in the position of someone being scammed, you'll know that sometimes it's really difficult to tell that someone is scamming you. It's not as easy as it might seem, like in the future looking back, or as simple as just, give me your items, trust me. A lot of times there is deception involved, especially with stuff like making huge purchases and stuff like that. Not to mention, you did mention that they take advantage of children, and children are children. It's not children's fault for being children or thinking like children or acting like children. It's the fault of the scammer, 100%. They do not be absolved from responsibility. It is still their fault. At least that's my opinion, and I think this is a pretty whack opinion to have, but I guess it makes sense in their own mind. I don't know, it just feels weird to me, man. Now here we have both sides of an argument, so I'm going to read them both out. The My Shop things were one of the worst things to happen to the game. Turned what used to be a fun roleplay game into animal-themed economy simulator. And then on the other side, we have the My Shop feature, while being a disruption of the original trading economy, actually made the game more enjoyable for those of us with social anxiety who find trading stressful, as well as saving sapphires, which was a nightmare before My Shop times. You still get the trade to be rare. I have a few opinions on this. For one, I think it's a little silly to say that the My Shop themselves were what made Animal Jam the economy simulator, especially considering the fact that long before My Shops were introduced, and I'm talking when I played the game first, 2015, 2016, 2017, even back then, the economy was a central part of the game. And I feel like it's always been, especially for Play Wild, considering the fact that a lot of Play Wild players were Classic players first back in the day, and Classic has always also been a huge trading thing. I feel like why some people may think that it's become such a big issue recently, unfortunately, is because they've grown up. When you're younger, you tend to gravitate towards the more childlike and whimsical parts of the game, like role plays and adventures and mini games. Whereas when you get older, you start to notice and understand the more mature part of the community with the trading and commissioning and stuff like that. And so it's not a lack of it not being there anymore. It's just the fact that you've grown up and you tend to gravitate towards different things, even if you may not like it. I know myself that I don't really do role plays in Animal Jam anymore, but I try to be more open towards the younger and more whimsical part of the game, and I see role plays everywhere, being advertised in the Pillow Room, in the Fox Den, in the Sapphire Shop, all of the time. I know that I have fans who are completely oblivious to the trading system. Some of them don't trade at all, and I just feel it's not really the community has changed. It just provided an easier entry to the trading system. Like the other person said, a lot of people get really nervous from trading. I'm definitely one of them, and I feel if anything, My Shops made it easier to get sapphires for one, and then for two, just enter into the worth system. I don't think that it changed the game fundamentally in the social aspect. I think that it just helped grow a pre-existing economy and a pre-existing system and just made it more easy to enter. And last but not least, we have this absolute gut punch of an opinion, which definitely took me a while to process when initially reading it, but is definitely something to consider, and I think, if you gave it some thought, could be really interesting to think about. Just bear with me here because this is a long one, and it comes in multiple posts. Animal Jam Classic should have never been made. Animal Jam Classic was sadly made right around the era where tablets became the primary platform for children gaming and Flash-based browsers gaming declined. And Flash doesn't work on mobile, so they had no choice but to develop a reboot while the original was just gaining ground, or lose out on the giant user base of kids. Yet Animal Jam Classic had a sizable user base of players that entirely rejected Play Wild. This put WildWorks in an awkward position of supporting two entirely different games at the same time, both requiring different workers with different skill sets. PlayWild developers can't easily make content for Classic and vice versa, and to make it worse, Flash was discontinued shortly after Classic launched, and doesn't even work in browser anymore, losing one of the main advantages it had over PlayWild. And developers who know how to develop for Classic will be rarer and rarer, as no one wants to learn a framework that is effectively dead. The end result is that Classic and PlayWild have to compete for developer resources. Classic players are angry that WildWorks gives most of their attention to PlayWild, which WildWorks has no choice but to do as Classic was built on a platform that wasn't sustainable, while PlayWild is held back from its full potential due to the time and resources spent on Classic. All of these problems could have been avoided if WildWorks simply didn't start developing Animal Jam for 2 years or so. Then they'd have seen the rise of mobile devices and PlayWild would have been the only Animal Jam, instead of having two half-baked Animal Jams. There would be one with all the features of both and the full attention of WildWorks. There wouldn't be a fractured player base or features that only exist in one or another. WildWorks likely knows this, and I guarantee that they curse themselves for having ever made Classic in the first place. Then waiting for 2 years would have saved them so much trouble. This was a lot to take in, and I'm sure even now it is a lot to take in for you guys. And I had to give it a lot of thought before fully forming my opinion, because while I am primarily a player of Animal Jam Play Wild, I do enjoy Animal Jam Classic, and I have tons of friends who absolutely adore Animal Jam Classic. I would say that back in the day, when Animal Jam was at its high point, that Animal Jam Classic, beyond any question of a doubt, completely overruled Play Wild in terms of popularity and just general features and enjoyment. Obviously, the tables have turned at this point, and it's really easy to play mental what-if games in your head as to, what if this happened, what if this happens? But obviously none of that happened, so we can only theorize. But I think that honestly, that could very well be true. Animal Jam did hit the market at a really unfortunate time for them. And while they did have a decent period of time where they were in the limelight and did receive a lot of backing from the community and Nat Geographic and generally succeeded really well, unfortunately the time that it was launched at, as well as both of the games, did end up with us in this pitfall we're at now, where neither games are fully definitive versions of one another, where Animal Jam Classic has these better features like adventures, and then Animal Jam Played Wild has all this other stuff, and it definitely does create a conflict of interest. And I never really considered the developer thing before, but 100%, because animating Animal Jam Classic, for example, is so much different than animating Play Wild, simply because of the different art styles. And then just to think about it, Animal Jam Play Wild has 3D models, Animal Jam Classic has sprites. It is a lot, and we can even see in the teaser trailers and update videos for Play Wild that you have it's a bigger team than you want to think, because there's the community is so small at this point that the way I hear people talking about it is kind of and Wildworks is this little company. It's not, especially now that it was bought out by Nazara. It has a larger developer pool, but Animal Jam Classic was built on Flash, which is incredibly old, and is also why Animal Jam Classic isn't receiving any updates at this point. And I mean any real updates with new items and new features and new animals and all that, is because they cannot change the source. They cannot add anything new because of how old and decrepit and restricted everything is because of the death of Flash. And I think that currently where we're at now with how Classic isn't really receiving updates, there isn't really that much concern for lack of developer resource for Play Wild, but it's definitely an issue for Classic, especially since in an interview with Clark Stacy with Delicate, he said that he intends on finding a way to, I don't remember how it was exactly, but to revitalize Animal Jam Classic's code so that it could be updated in some way. But that is going to take so much work and so much effort from what is likely a very small team, because Animal Jam Play Wild has all the popularity and is kind of the cash cow. It makes sense to put most of your energy and resources into it in comparison to Classic, which is difficult to make money off of. And then additionally, if you're going to do this and completely remake Classic's code so that it can be updated, that's going to require an insane amount of work. And then, like this user said, there's not going to be that many developers that are willing to dip their toes into Classic because it is going to be so different to learn. So kind of all around, we have an unfortunate scenario specifically for Classic, I feel over Play Wild. I feel in the state we are now, Play Wild isn't suffering so much, though if Play Wild had been the original definitive version of the game, Play Wild could be better than it is now, but I feel it isn't suffering now, if that makes any sense. I feel the real unfortunate victim of this whole thing is Classic, and I feel a lot of us could probably agree with that. If you look at the state of Classic, it isn't doing too well. It's full of bugs, it's rarely updated, and from what I have seen experimenting with and playing the game, there's an unfortunate big chunk of the active player base that don't really have the best intentions, and because more focus is on Play Wild, nothing is really being done over at Classic. I can't say nothing because I have no idea what's going on behind the scenes, but at least from what I can see, not as much is being done with Classic as it should be. But it's really difficult for me to say as I'm not a Classic player. But to sum it up, from what I have heard from Classic players, is that where we are at now with Classic is kind of getting over this hump, and it looks like things are looking up. I don't understand the significance as a Play Wild player, but a lot of Classic players say that the returning of Wild Weekends is a really good sign of things to come, and even now Animal Jam Classic is releasing Rare Item Mondays that aren't just recolored old items, but are unreleased items which didn't exist in the game previously, which could also be a good sign, but I don't know. I'm going on a tangent here, my apologies. But overall, that's kind of my opinion with the whole thing. It's a pretty fun topic to talk about and debate about, as long as people don't get out of hand, because I know that some players just love to rip on, Play Wild or vice versa. And it is very easy to get into like a really bad mindset with like, oh, Animal Jam's a dying game, why even try? No, I think that the community could, like, we could look up from here. But yeah, overall, let me know what you think about this. And this is kind of wrapping up the video here, because these are the good opinions I have for right now. This was really fun to talk about. I know this isn't the usual commentary videos I have, like taking a look and like at the active issues in the game or stuff that people are complaining about, but I think that this was a really fun way to look at a variety of shorter opinions within one video that I couldn't make like a whole video on. And I really enjoyed doing it. A lot more casual speak, more podcasty in my long tangents, and I had a lot of fun doing it. That being said, people's opinions are always changing and new opinions are always being formed, so this is totally like a video idea that I would be okay with like visiting again, like making part 2 or part 3 or whatever. So if you guys have any of your own Animal Jam hot takes or just like really strong opinions, like let me know in the comments. I might use your comments in a future video. There's no guaranteeing that, but if I do get enough interest and a lot of people show that, hey, we like this video, I might go back and make a part 2 with some of your comments or some of your posts on the Discord server. But I hope you guys like this video. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see y'all guys around.